From the airplane you fly in to the app that's on your phone right now, our world is shaped by these powerful and mostly invisible design philosophies. We almost never notice them, but when they go wrong, well, the consequences can be absolutely catastrophic. So today, we're going to pull back that curtain and look at the hidden logic that really shapes our reality. It kind of sounds like the start of a bad joke, right? A super high-tech airliner falling out of the sky and a social media filter that, puts cat ears on you. They seem like they're from completely different universes. But what if I told you they're connected in a deep and frankly dangerous way? So, the link, it's not a physical part. It's not a line of code. It's a way of thinking. It's a flawed approach to solving really complex problems that just keeps showing up again and again in places where you would least expect it. To really see what this looks like in the real world, we have to start with one of the most tragic design failures in recent memory, the whole story of the Boeing 737 MAX. Okay, so here's the deal. Boeing wanted to update its classic 737 with these new, more fuel-efficient engines. The problem was, the new engines were so big, they actually changed the plane's aerodynamics, making the nose pitch up. Instead of a huge, costly physical redesign, they went for a software patch, a system called MCAS. It was supposed to be this invisible, automatic fix that nobody would even notice. Wow. This quote from an analyst, it just cuts right to the bone. The software that was created to help the pilots actually ended up fighting them for control of the plane. You see, this wasn't just a simple bug. It was a complete failure in the design philosophy, where the automated fix became the single biggest threat. And this just shows the tragic chain reaction. The safety of the entire plane, with hundreds of people on board, was pinned on a single sensor. So when that one sensor failed, it sent bad data to MCAS, and the software did exactly what it was told to do. It pushed the nose of the plane down, over and over again, literally fighting the pilots until the very end.
But here's the thing. This exact pattern, applying a narrow technical fix without seeing the bigger picture, it's not just in aviation. Oh no, it is everywhere in the software and algorithms we use every single day. The consequences might not always be a plane crash, but they can be just as damaging.
I mean, just think about these examples. A Snapchat filter that ends up looking like a racist caricature. A Google algorithm that makes a horrifying mistake because its training data was biased. An Amazon delivery model that accidentally creates digital redlining. In every single one of these cases, the technology was working perfectly, just as it was programmed. But the design philosophy behind it completely failed to consider the complex realities of our society, of our culture, of our history. And this is the key right here. Stanford historian Londa Schiebinger basically argues that you can't just patch these kinds of problems after they pop up. You have to build things with an awareness of human diversity from the very beginning. It's not about fixing bugs. It's about fundamentally changing the philosophy of how we design things in the first place. Which brings us to the real heart of the issue. The failures we've just looked at in both airplanes and in algorithms, they all stem from this philosophical tug-of-war in how we solve problems. Do we focus on the tiny little parts, or do we try to see the entire system? Okay, so on one side you have this idea called reductionism. This is pretty much the foundation of modern Western science and engineering. The idea is simple. To understand something complex, you break it down into its smallest, most manageable pieces. So in medicine, that means you isolate a virus to create a vaccine. It's incredibly powerful, but its focus can be incredibly narrow. The opposing view is holism, and holism argues that a system is always more than the sum of its parts, right? You can't understand a forest by just studying one tree. In medicine, this means looking at a patient's diet, their stress levels, their environment, their mental health, not just the virus. It's all about understanding the connections. I mean, even the World Health Organization takes a holistic view. They define health not just as, not being sick, but as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. That is a totally holistic idea. And by contrast, Boeing's MCAS system, that was a purely reductionist fix. It was designed only to solve for the absence of stability, and it completely failed to consider the whole system of the pilot, the sensors, and the machine working together. So, if a purely reductionist approach can be this risky, how are we supposed to manage all of this overwhelming complexity without getting lost? Well, the answer might actually come from a pretty unexpected place: minimalism. And I don't mean as an aesthetic, but as a really powerful design framework. When we look at minimalist art like this piece by Solowit, it's not really about empty space. The artist Frank Stella had this famous line about the movement: "What you see is what you see." It's all about stripping away everything that's not essential to focus on the core structure, the main idea. It's actually a strategy for managing complexity. And this is so important. In design, minimalism isn't about having less just for the sake of it. It is a deliberate process of cutting back to make things clearer and more effective. It's all about making those tough choices about what truly matters. Okay, here is the perfect example. Think about an old TV remote with like 50 buttons you never ever touch. That's just needless complexity. Now think about the original iPod Shuffle. It was a minimalist masterpiece, and here's why. Apple made a brilliant decision. They separated the complex task, organizing your music, and had you do that on a computer. That left the simple task, listening, for the device itself. So the device only needed the bare essentials: play, pause, and skip. Genius. And this isn't just one single idea. We can actually break this concept of minimalism down into 4 distinct strategies for dealing with complexity.
Let's just walk through them real quick. First, you've got functional minimalism, basically doing one thing and doing it perfectly. Then there's structural minimalism. That's about making the most common path super easy and hiding all the other options. Third is architectural minimalism. Think of it like Legos, giving you simple blocks to build complex things, just like the iPod and iTunes. And finally, there's compositional minimalism. This is when you create a simple tool, like email, that users then adapt in ways the designer never ever imagined. And this brings us right back to the beginning. The Boeing disaster was a failure of that reductionist thinking, fixing one part without seeing the whole system. The tech bias examples, that was a failure to see the complex social system that the products actually live in. These minimalist strategies, they offer a way forward. For instance, architectural minimalism might have pushed Boeing to see the engine, the software, and the pilot training as separate, but interconnected modules, instead of just patching one to fix the other. It's about managing complexity without creating these dangerous hidden fractures in the system.
So, I guess the ultimate takeaway is this. Adding more features, more code, or more quick fixes, that's the easy part. The real art, the thing that separates safe and successful design from, well, everything else, is the philosophy you use to thoughtfully, carefully manage the incredible complexity of the world that we're all designing for. So the next time you use an app, or you board a plane, or even just use your TV remote, ask yourself, what was the philosophy behind this? What choices were made here? What complexity is being hidden, and is it being managed thoughtfully? Because everything around you is designed, and now you have a lens to see what's hiding in plain sight.